Now, a very special guest on Sounds of the 70s this week. She is Suzi Quatro. Born in Detroit, Michigan, home of Motown and the U.S. motor industry, she learned drums and percussion from an early age, also piano, played in her father's jazz band, and later on played in a group with her sisters, where she played bass. She was spotted in Detroit by producer Mickie Most and came to England in 1971, and he signed her to Rack Records. During the 70s, she supported Thin Lizzy and Slade on tour, as well as releasing a string of hit singles, including Can the Can, 48 Crash and Devilgate Drive. These days, Suzi is getting ready for a tour in November. She's just released an album of duets with KT Tunstall called Face to Face, and she's also the subject of a documentary film called Suzi Q. I'll chat to Suzi after this, a song that kind of sums her up. A hit from 1974, it's called The Wild One.
All my life I wanted to be somebody, and here I am. Yes, I'm the wild one.
That's Suzi Quatro and The Wild One, a hit from 1974. And that kind of sums you up, Suzi, doesn't it?
You know what's so funny? My husband of 30 years now, he says, when I'm at home, the wild one becomes the mild one. But I'm not so sure that's true.
But where did that wildness come from and that rebellious kind of streak that you've always had?
I've just always been the same. I think it was my lucky break in life to be born into a big family of 5 and to not fit in.
Were you the last born?
No, I was second last. And I was like another girl. You know what I mean? It was like she had 3 girls already. She wanted another girl. And it's just because I didn't fit. I never fit in anywhere. I had a loving family, and we got along great. I just didn't fit in, and that was right the way through my life. So if you don't fit in anywhere, then you create your own niche.
Now, when the band, the all-girl band that you and your sisters were in, the Pleasure Seekers, they kind of decided, okay, Suzi, you're playing bass. Were you all right about that?
I didn't care. I was a trained drummer. I played in the school orchestra, and I was a trained classical pianist. I played both and read both. Both of those, drums are percussive and piano's percussive. So really, when I put that bass on, when I got my first bass from my dad, it was such a natural fit. And on stage, although I play all the other instruments, on stage, that's my baby.
And as Alice Cooper said in the film about you, Suzi Q, a great film documentary, he said, I don't know why Suzi didn't get a smaller guitar. And I've often wondered that.
I want to whack Alice for that one. I can answer that quite easily. I asked my dad, did he have a bass? My dad was a musician, and he had everything in the house. We had 2 baby grand pianos. We had a harp. We had a ukulele. Everything you needed was in this house. I said, do you have a bass? He gave me 1957 Fender Precision. That is the Rolls Royce of bass guitars. I didn't know anything about it, so I didn't question, is there a lighter bass? Is there a smaller neck? All I knew was this is what I had to learn. So it never even came into my head. I found out later that there were choices, but the good thing is I'm a good bass player because I learned on the hardest one.
I mean, there's Paul McCartney used to play that little Hohner bass guitar. I mean,
not for me.
You'd look silly with that.
I have to ride my bass, you know. It's just, and everybody always says to me that it looks like I was born with a bass in my hand. It's a very natural thing with me.
But you're so small and they're so heavy.
Yeah, but I don't notice it. I think I must be the right height from the ground to balance it or something. Because, I mean, I came off the stage one time after my bass solo, and I had to grab something, and I gave the guitar quickly to my husband, who's a big guy, and he went, whoa. I said, what do you mean, whoa?
Now, you're born and raised in Detroit, which is quite a place and known for heavy rock. And then Mickie Most came to see you. And let me tell you, I went to a package show in Birmingham when I was just a kid, about 15 or so. And on stage came Mickie Most. He just got back from touring in South Africa. And he was a really good singer and performer.
Yeah. Oh, bless him. I miss him.
Yeah. Then he formed Rack Records, and he was looking for talent. What brought him to Detroit?
He came to Detroit with Jeff Beck and Cozy Powell to record at Motown. My brother, who was kind of looking after the band at the time, it was called Cradle by this time, and we had morphed into a serious write your own songs, jamming kind of band. And I was at the back a little bit because little sister Nancy came in to sing. So I was pushed at the back. And that was about an 18-month situation in which I became really good on my instrument because I wasn't a front performer. That's the band Mickie saw. I did 2 songs. I did Brain Confusion, which I'd written, and Jailhouse Rock. The story is, Jeff told me this, Jeff Beck, bless him. He said, I looked at Mickie and I said, the bass player, and Mickie said, I clocked it already. So then he offered me a solo contract, which was my second offer of a solo contract within 1 week. So, that means it's time to go. So he said, Jack Holtzman wanted to take me to New York from Elektra and make me into the next Janis Joplin. And Mickie Mo said, come to England, I'll record you and make you into the first Suzi Quatro. So for me, that's a no-brainer. So Mickie saw me. I wasn't Janis Joplin. I'm not Janis Joplin. I adore her, but I'm nothing like her.
And then he brought you over to London, and I guess he did his best to look after you, but you must have had some lonely times and difficult times.
The loneliest part of my life, actually. It was like 18 months before anything happened, and I didn't have any money, and I lived in a tiny little room with a tiny little bed, not even a toilet in the room, and all I did was walk every day with my bass guitar from Earl's Court to London, go up into the top floor at Rack, write songs, and go back home. And I used to often cry myself to sleep, but saying that, going back home was not an option. It didn't matter how lonely it was. I had set out to do something, and I was, you know me, Johnny, long enough, I'm determined. But when I'm determined, nobody stops me.
The wild one indeed. So then Mickie had the idea of putting you together with songwriter and producer combination Nikki, Chinn and Mike Chapman. How did you get on when you first met those guys?
The thing was, I was signed as a singer-songwriter musician, and we were recording a lot of stuff. Mickie would be the first to say it. He didn't know how to capture me in the studio. He was lost. He didn't know what I was. So we went on that first Slade tour. I finally formed a band, which I was going nuts, not being in a band. I finally formed a band. Then we started doing all my own songs. And then we went on that first ever Slade tour. I was the opening act along with Thin Lizzy and then Slade. They were headliners. By the time that tour was over, of course, we had our sound and our style because it was all my own stuff. So at the same point, Mickie signed Chinn and Chapman, who were very good at writing 3-minute single. And Mickie said to me, you've got your style, you've got your sound. Why don't I get Mike to come and see you play? And maybe he can craft the magical 3-minute single. Do you mind? And I said, not whatsoever. And that's how Can the Can was written, which, by the way, is 50 years old this year, being number 1.
Happy anniversary to Can the Can.
Absolutely.
Which was number 1 all over the place, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did great, actually. And we kind of knew. Mickie said, this is going to be a number 1. And he was right.
And do you remember when and how you heard the news it was number 1?
Yes, I was upstairs in the little flat that we were living in, Lenny and I, my first husband, my guitar player. And the phone rang at about 8 in the morning, and the lady who owned the house, who lived downstairs with the family, she called me down. It was Mickie, and he dragged it out, with a little stinker he could be, dragged it out. He said, Suzi. I said, yes. He said, you got a gig in Bristol tonight, don't you? I said, yes. He said, well, I think you're going to have to fly. And I didn't like to fly at this point. I said, why? He said, well, because you're going to be doing Top of the Pops. Because you're number 1. And I screamed the house down. Fantastic. Just fantastic. What a feeling that is,
And there it is, that big number 1 record for Suzi Quatro from 1973. And that was Can the Can. And that opened a lot of doors for you, didn't it?
Well, it started everything. It started the ball rolling. I remember going to the pub after we watched ourselves on Top of the Pops, and I got mobbed. And so life changes, as you know it. I went, wow, what's going on? I got champagne from the record company, all interviewers, it's a magical experience. And I kind of went through the ego trip. It was about 48 hours, I think it lasted. And then I looked in the mirror and looked at myself. I actually looked in my mirror and I went, you idiot, you're the exact same person you always were. Then I came back down to earth, and I've never ventured down that ego trip again. But you must go through it.
Now, how did the Jumpsuit look start?
That was, I'm known, it's documented, I am a huge Elvis fan. He's the reason I do what I do since the age of 5.5. So we had Can the Can recorded, and Mickie said, okay, this is going to be number 1. Now it's time to get your image together. What do you want to wear? And I said, leather. And he went, no. I said, yes. He said, no. He said, it's been done. And I said, not by me. So I got my way, which I always did. And then he sat there a minute. I remember sitting there. And he went, what about a jumpsuit? And all I said was, great, that's a great idea, because I can be very naive about these things. I honestly just thought it was sensible, because I jump around on stage and everything would stay in place. And it wasn't until we got the photos back that I went, oh, I see. Oh, dear. I better go to confession.
What do you mean, oh, dear?
Well, because it was sexy, but you know what, I've asked lots of guys this in the business. Did I look like I was trying to be sexy? And every single guy has said to me, no, you did not look like you were trying to be sexy. So it was almost like an innocent sex appeal, really. Yeah. That's how I see it. But I saw that it was, in fact, a sexy outfit, which I didn't realize.
Now, you were raised a Catholic girl with quite a strict mum. When she saw you in a leather jumpsuit, how did she react?
Oh, my favorite reaction from my mother, I took her to a gig in Detroit, my mom and dad, when we finally went back in 1974. So I'd had my hits, and we came back and we played Detroit with Blue Oyster Cult and Kiss supporting us. Got the limousine, did the whole thing, really, really, oh, great. My mom and dad were at my gig in Detroit, and I'm successful. So we're riding home, and my mother obviously saw me on stage in the jumpsuit. Riding home, and I said, Mom, how did you like the show? She said, well, Susan, she said, I liked it very much, but did you have to stand with your legs so far apart? What a great line. What a great line. And my answer was yes.
Just balancing the bass, Mum.
Yeah, exactly. She one time said to me, aren't you ashamed what you do to that audience? I said, no. She was a very Catholic mom,
Now, another hit that you had was a great song, not in the sort of normal tradition of a Suzi Quatro song, the one called If You Can't Give Me Love. It was a bit of a change of sound in a way.
Yeah, that was purposely a change of sound. Mike had run away in 1976. He went and relocated to the USA. He wanted to just have a break from everything. He was going through a few emotional problems, and he stopped working with us. And in that space, I made one album with Mickie producing called Agoraphobia, because it was in my contract. Then, it's so strange, I got the part in Happy Days in 1977. Mike Chapman, we got in touch with him. He wasn't having anything to do with anybody. We finally got in touch with him. He came along to the first taping of the first Happy Days. And then we started to talk, and I said, Mike, we really should be working together. He said, we should. You're right. It's time. And he said, but I want something different. If we're going to be working together again, we're not going to make the same single. I love your natural voice, which is very country naturally. So that night they went to the opening of Saturday Night Fever, I think it was, and they wrote, If You Can't Give Me Love. Well, I've seen you before on that discotheque floor. And I was recording that while I was filming Happy Days. Pretty special time for me.
Well, I've seen you before.
Suzi Quatro and If You Can't Give Me Love, recorded, as she said, during her time doing Happy Days. You fitted right in there, and you obviously got on well with Henry Winkler, Fonz.
I got along with everybody. I'm still in constant email contact with Henry and with Ron Howard. I made two good friends there. I was quite clever, Johnny. When I went to that show, when I was about ready to start my first filming week, and everything, I kind of thought, well, if I was these guys and this girl walks in, with some hits under her belt, and she's going to act for the first time, I might get my nose out of joint. Like, who does she think she is? So I did a little speech. I said, okay, everybody, I know you know who I am, and I know you know I've come from success, but I got to tell you something. I know what I'm doing in music and on the stage and rock and roll. I said, but this is new to me. So I would appreciate any help any of you can give me. And it was brilliant. Boy, did they all help, too. But Ron Howard said, I never looked like I was new to the show, ever. And I never looked like I was new to acting. He gave me those compliments. He said, you just slid right in like you were always there, which is nice.
Oh, Happy Days indeed. Now, you've just come out with a new album with Katie Tunstall. You're doing together on that album. Did you write the songs together, or how did it?
Yes, we did. It's called Face to Face. It's done amazingly well already. It was BBC Radio 2 Album of the Week when it came out, which is fantastic. I got to tell you, people aren't just liking this album, and I've been in the business a long time. They are loving this album. They're talking about the songs which we wrote together, the blend of the voices, and it's an emotional journey. We both shared our stories, our good parts, our bad parts, and we allowed ourselves to be vulnerable with each other, and we talked a lot, and all of a sudden I'd pick up my bass, she'd pick up her guitar, and we'd start to write. We sat in my front room barefoot on the carpet. It was just a magical experience.
I love the opening track, Shine a Light.
Oh, me too. Doesn't it just say it? You know, when we were kind of finishing and we're going to do the vocals, Katie had to go back to California. And I said to her, okay, here's what we'll do. You're coming back at this point to do your vocals. Why don't I, for the easy sake, sing all the tracks, send them to you, and then you pick out what you want to do. She said, that's perfect. So the opening track, Shine a Light, she came back. We're sitting in the studio. She's about to sing. She says, this verse, the first verse, is yours. I said, why? She said, because it is. she was right. You know, I have to say it. It's me. Opportunity knocked on my door. I chose to let it in. I picked my backbone off the floor, and because I had to fight to win, and now this movie can begin. That is me.
Now, there's a lot of people in the movie documentary Suzi Q saying great things about you and how you kicked open the door for females. I mean, there'd been maybe all-girl bands, but there hadn't really been a single solo singer and musician and songwriter in rock and roll. You made it easier for the women to follow. I
did, but, you know, I'm always very honest about this. I had no idea I was doing that. I really didn't. I was just being me. I refused to be anybody else. You know, somebody tried to change me. No, this is who I am. I was a T-shirt, blue jean, barefoot, rocking away. And it wasn't until I saw the premiere of the documentary, Suzi Q, at the Regent Theater, and I was booked in for the Q&A after the movie. And, of course, I wanted to see it with the audience, you know, and see it on the big screen. So I snuck in, stood on the side. A couple of people saw me. I shushed them. And I'm watching this film, and girl after girl after girl. I mean, Debbie Harry, Chrissy Hine, Joan Jett, Katie, Lita Ford, Donita Sparks, Tina Weymouth. People I'm forgetting, I'm sure. All through the documentary, they're coming in and they're saying, if it wasn't for Suzi Quatro, we would not have done what we did. And I started to cry. That's honestly the first time I realized what I had done. And I called my friend the next day, Cherie Curry, who was the ex-lead singer of the Runaways, and I told her the story. And I said, Kate, I just realized something, that by me doing what I did, I gave permission to women all over the world to be different. And there was this long transatlantic pause, and she went, and you just got that? You can't write it, can you? You can't write stuff.
Well, you wanted to do things your way.
I did.
Yeah, with some help from other people, of course. But
of course.
Yeah. They weren't going to tell you how you should be.
I think Mickie put it beautifully. He was in an interview with me one time. And they said, so do you control Suzi and Matt? He said, nobody tells Suzi what to do. You can suggest strongly. And that's pretty much me to a T, I think.
All right. Well, congratulations on everything. The documentary, you've got a tour coming up in the autumn, and on your new album with Katie Tunstall.
Thanks, Johnny. Bye.
Bye. Suzi Quatro, who I chatted to earlier on this week. So don't forget, have a listen to Suzi's album with Katie Tunstall. It's called Face to Face. And she tours in November, and the dates are Sunday the 12th at St David's Hall in Cardiff. She's at the Dome in Brighton on Monday 13th. Wednesday the 15th, a big show at the London Palladium. Thursday the 16th, she's at the Halls at the Civic in Wolverhampton. And then the final show, Saturday the 8th at the Bridgewater Hall in November. Suzi Quatro on tour in November.